Hello and welcome back to this edition of Bayou Time. I thank you so much for joining. Of course, your host, Keith Whiteside. And listen, when you have two people that make a difference in our community, when they are available, they do what I ask people to do all the time, to give the gift of presence. They do that every day, and they've been able to do that with us. Welcome back to the show, Earl Hughes. Earl, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Keith.
And sitting next to him, we have Chris Pulaski. Chris is we're thankful. You always are great at time management. You've been able to come in early, and man, if you're going to come in, we might as well have you up on the desk. Thanks for joining us.
And thank you for the purple shirt.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Go purple or don't go at all, right? And so one of the things that's so very important, we talked about, Earl and I talked about, you and I talked about it just this week. It's so important to be able to have, especially when it comes to government entities, work well together. Because if they don't, we can see breaks in support, breaks in care. We are so fortunate that we have our emergency office and how they plan and how we do everything with emergency planning and what Earl does and what everything that goes on with Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government working so well together. And so first and foremost, thanks. But that goes with a great deal of attention and a great deal of energy. And so I just appreciate both of y'all doing that. Earl, you were just talking about how it's so hard to do without the help of good leadership and good support.
Sure. I mean, our parish is very fortunate to have a set of directors over our departments that have a passion for this parish.
Yes.
And that's why they all work hard for the residents of our parishes. And, when we activate for a hurricane, we're fortunate to have Chris and his staff come into our office, which is the planning and zoning department.
Right.
And then, all the other departments that come in. And then, we have Kelly Cunningham with Housing and Human Services that comes in and helps us. And, man, after the storm, there are a plethora of information and help for our residents in order to get them back where they need to be.
And it all starts before anything ever happens. And Chris, we talk about it all the time. You guys are always well prepared and very well educated about the needs of the community, the needs of our parish, and how to get that achieved.
That's right. I mean, the planning for what goes on in the Emergency Operations Center starts the day after hurricane season ends. Right. I mean, it's a year-round process. And I recall, I don't know if it was Zeta or Delta, but in 2020, Governor John Bell Edwards came and visited the Emergency Operations Center. And I remember sitting next to him and pointing out, the systems on the televisions and how the monitors and how it all works together. And he made a statement when he addressed the whole group. He said that we're fortunate to have such a great Emergency Operations Center, a great, parish president and a great director at the helm of that, and said that unfortunately Terrebonne Parish has really good practice at how to run that and how to respond to a storm.
Well, but it's not only that, it's about learning from what other people have experienced and what we've experienced. I'm often said that the greatest teacher is from some of the mistakes that have been made. We've learned from not only our own, but from some others, right? And I don't mean mistakes, but situations.
And every storm and every system is different. Every time we activate, it's different. And we learn something every time we activate. And fortunately, our administration allows us to reach out and go visit other places and go get the knowledge at conferences and everything that we need to come back and prepare our parish for these events.
Yeah, and being well-trained and open-minded to that is the other thing that happens with that.
And, Chris, made a mention just a while ago, we got the state and other counties and parishes and other portions of the state and other neighboring states wanting to know how do we do the housing here?
Right.
How do we do the temporary housing and how come it was so successful for you guys? So and we love going tell our story to everybody else and try to help other people.
Right. And learning from what happened with Laura, learning from what happened with other storms about what to do. That's where you guys came up with the idea of being able to use the state system for temporary housing before FEMA comes in. It was so unique. And again, Chris and their team really deserves a great deal of credit for that. in doing so, we've had to put a request here, and it went through the parish president just this week, right? Can we talk about that?
Sure. So last week we had a conference in Lake Charles, the Louisiana Emergency Management Conference. The administrator for FEMA Region 6 was there, Tony Robinson, and also the GOSUP director, Casey Tingle. At that point in time, we asked if we could get a request, a blanket appeal of the payment of the fair market value of rent for those living in FEMA temporary housing, and to continue the $50 rent that they're paying. Now, I want to remind the residents, it's just a request that we have made for that blanket appeal, and FEMA will be the ultimate decision maker on whether that occurs or not. But Parish President Gordy Dove signed a letter yesterday, and it was presented to GOSUP yesterday.
And so something really important, Chris, that you had mentioned about that, and just that people are not at a point where they can really afford to incur some additional costs, and so that's kind of the request for that.
Yeah, some of the residents are living in those FEMA units because they were renting or they were at the Houma high rise, so they don't have a place to go back to at the moment, and a lot of them are low to moderate income or on a fixed income. So this affords them the ability to remain in that unit until the other options that we're working on so hard with Kelly, Cunningham, and all the other departments to put in place
for some more permanent housing, and that's
Correct.
kind of what we're working on. It takes time, but as mentioned, there's a lot of things in the works, and so I am very thankful for that. Chris, we'll ask you to stick around if that's okay, and maybe talk about some other things. Earl, we'll let you be on your way.
Well, I appreciate that. I do want to remind the residents that are in temporary housing that they still have to file their individual appeal. Do not wait on an answer from, we get from FEMA, but please file your individual appeal.
And talk to the case managers
To your
that you're
case
working with,
manager,
right?
that's correct.
Very good. All right, guys, we're going to take a short break, but a whole lot more with Chris Pulaski when we return. Don't go anywhere.